Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, July the 16th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, who's produced the program. Let's get at it. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, and the topic entirely up to you, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So you heard Brian Medore in the newscast talking about the home run derby at the MLB All-Star break. You know, inside the big four, so football, basketball, hockey, and baseball. Baseball is probably the best All-Star game. It's much more like the regular season game, unlike hockey and football and basketball, which are pretty trashy, even if you like some of the fastest skater and three-point contests or what have you. But I think for most, even casual sports fans, everyone digs the long ball. So last night was the home run derby, and former Blue Jay Teoscar Hernandez beat Kansas City's Bobby Witt Jr. In the final. So Hernandez, of course, spent 5 years as a Jay. He was a Silver Slugger with the Jays. It's too bad they let him go because he really does have a pretty hot bat. But Bobby Witt Jr., that's the name you're going to remember because he's a shortstop, and here he is in the final of the home run derby. He's the first player, I think I heard this right last night, first player in Major League history to go to the All-Star break with 50-plus extra base hits and 20 stolen bases. So he's absolutely incredible. But the home run derby last night. And another interesting baseball note. It was on this date in 1941 that Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak came to an end. Of course, it's the longest stretch in Major League history. Records are made to be broken. I think he might be able to shelve this one. So behind DiMaggio on the list is Willie Keeler. He hit 45 straight games, so he's playing for the Baltimore Orioles, 1896. For modern-day numbers, Pete Rose has a stretch of 44 games, and you go down to Paul Molitor, 39, Jimmy Rollins, 38. But in the history of Major League Baseball, only 57 players ever have had a 30-plus game hit streak. So 56 is probably out of reach for most. Anywho, I'm sure you really care about that. Yesterday, I got kind of caught up doing some supper prep, tuned in to watch a bit of the Tour de France. It's a little bit boring, but it's superhuman effort required to compete in the Tour de France. So over 21 stages, over the course of 23 or 24 days, they race about 3,500 kilometers on their bicycle, and a lot of it in the mountains. So that's on an average of about 167 kilometers every day in the 21 stages. Superhuman. There's a reason why people have doped, like famously Lance Armstrong, to win his, 7? Anyway, keep rolling. So maybe based on some of the comments coming from Russell and Jerry Lynn Mackey on the VOC Morning Show, there were some calls that I kind of heard while I was trying to get ready to do the show about people's concern with the big rush to automation. And you see it everywhere you go. So whether about be the prevalence of self-checkouts, which comes with a problem for the retailers because, of course, people are willing to commit the 5-finger discount. And one more reminder, you are not obliged, period, unless you're at Costco, to show what's in your bag and provide your receipt. They're the one to put the self-checkout in place. If theft is a problem, it's their own problem. Self-induced concern. But then it's another issue someone brought forward about how few bank tellers are in place. Because, yes, the advent of online banking and the reliance on the ATM has really replaced a lot of teller positions. So we see it all the time. And, you know, one lady who called said, you know, as a senior, she doesn't use a computer, doesn't know how to turn one on. Not to say seniors can't use computers, because absolutely tons of them can and are pretty slick on their iPad or on their desktop or their laptop, whatever the case may be. So we can take on that kind of stuff, but it is happening very quickly. The traditional counter service, those options are very few and far between. And then just another reminder, even if you don't pay any attention to it or you're aware of it, the whole concept of artificial intelligence is everywhere. It touches almost everything we do, from governmental levels to businesses to not-for-profits, just people on social media, and there are some absolute benefits to artificial intelligence. But don't take it from me, the godfather of AI is a guy named Jeffrey Hinton. He thinks he made a mistake. He thinks that this is going to get away from us. And there are some distinct risks. Because, of course, it's the whole issue of garbage in, garbage out. It's based on algorithms. And so if you have biased algorithms input, then, of course, what comes out is going to have the attached or adhered bias based on the algorithm itself. Then there's transparency, explainability, job losses, which will absolutely be part and parcel. And yes, people are going to have to work on the computer software and hardware. But then there's the social manipulation and the deep fakes we'll see. Social surveillance was absolutely a key feature of AI technology. Lack of data privacy, the socioeconomic inequality that absolutely is attached to many things online, certainly with artificial intelligence, ethics and goodwill and regulation. And again, over-regulating the world is a problem. People want government to stay out of everywhere, including their bedroom, but unless some of the companies that are using these algorithms, especially on the social media platforms, it's a real shame that we have to see some potential for government intervention. Not to say I'm a fan of, because I am not, but it's kind of getting away from us in a hurry. Then there's issues regarding the financial crisis. Again, there's been a couple of key examples, whether it be the 2010 flash crash or the Night Capital flash crash. These things are happening. So anyway, if that's an issue that you know more about than I, we'd welcome your call here this morning. Okay, let's go to the Premier's meetings, which actually begin today in Halifax. Right off the bat, there was, some interaction between Premier Francis Legault from Quebec and Premier Fury, talking about the cooperation of Quebec with our province to try to battle the wildfires in Labrador. And yes, Labrador City is under an emergency evacuation order. Wildbush is on standby alert. Just a couple of quick notes there. Hopefully the weather cooperates. So far, fingers crossed, so good. Need more rain, of course, and hopefully that actually comes to pass and the wind settles down. Couple of questions that are being asked that I don't have an answer to, but they're pretty good questions. So, similar to the compensation package to those... Whoa, lights just went out. Similar to the compensation... I'm going to have to do it all off the top of my head now because I can't see a damn thing. The compensation for post-Fiona victims, or pardon me, those who were displaced because of Fiona, $1,000 to cover things like gas and some clothing and things and food and shelter when you had to leave your home, in this case in Lab City. One or a couple of the questions being asked that are really solid is, of course, we know that there's somewhere in the neighbourhood of, 3,000 households in Labrador City. The government can't give us a number about how much money they think will be passed out by the Salvation Army, and which you have, the Red Cross, and you have to register with the Red Cross by the 31st of July in order to receive the money. But here's one. So I got a mom and dad, and maybe an adult son or daughter living in the home. And as opposed to leave all the vehicles there, just in case the fire jumped into the city and maybe lost my vehicle due to fire, this one particular family said that they took all 3 vehicles. And everyone's an adult, and everyone's working, and of course their income will be lost if they can't go to their job in Lab City. So are they all eligible for the $1,000? That's a really good question. Or is it $1,000 per household? Because you can just think about it in your own head, is that folks may have taken both vehicles if it's just husband and wife or 2 adults with their driver's license in the home. Why? Because they don't want to leave them behind. And then the question is being asked by folks from Churchill Falls, whether or not they're going to be eligible for the same funds, and apparently not. Given the fact it's a company town managed by Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, the potential for lost income was less likely than it would be if you're displaced from Lab City. But there you go. So that's the couple of questions we're going to try to get answers to on your behalf. So we went through the thank you to Quebec for the water bombers. Fair enough. Then I guess we're going to find out this week whether or not there are other provinces interested in joining the Constitutional Court challenge brought forward by this province challenging the equalization formula. We can talk about it as the politics and the optics of it, but it's real, and we all do think collectively that the formula is biased and it's not fair. You know, we talk about the concept of how much it costs to provide services here, because that's what equalization is about, is an equitable opportunity to provide services from province to province, territory to territory. And then you get, generally people point a finger at Quebec, and fair enough, they bring in billions every single year. We have been without an equalization check as being a half province since 2008. The rest of the Atlantic provinces brought in about $45 billion. Apparently BC Premier David Eby is going to tell the country tomorrow whether or not his province will join. We've heard support from Saskatchewan and Premier Moe, Alberta and Premier Smith, so that challenge is out there. People will simply point to the politics of it all, but c'est la vie. Then there's, of course, going to be concepts regarding what the premiers are collectively saying is stay in your own lane. And this is actually really interesting stuff. And we can back politics out of it and talk about pragmatic policy. So 2 specific examples. Now, we know that the government has had their wrists slapped a couple of times for overreach regarding labelling plastic as toxic, because waste management is a provincial jurisdiction and responsibility. Then some premiers across the country are crooked with the feds for dealing directly with municipalities for housing money. We can get into some housing issues as well. But 2 big key ones are dental care and pharmacare. Both were rolled out pretty quickly because of the supply and confidence agreement that the Liberals have with the NDP. And they were rolled out with plenty of confusion. Tons of confusion for pharmacare, diabetes treatments, and contraceptives. In the dental care program, plenty of questions about who is actually eligible. Folks simply think that it's just a seniors program when that's not the case. 18 years of or under, disability tax credit in hand, and those 65 and older are currently eligible. And eventually, everyone who's under the net family income of $90,000 will indeed be eligible. So lots of confusion on dental and lots of confusion on pharma. But here's what some premiers are saying. The provinces all have some form of plan for dental care coverage, and in some provinces better than others, and for pharmaceuticals. So as opposed to another level of federal bureaucracy to administer these programs, the thought is, why not just give the money directly to the provinces to expand on their already existing programs? Fair enough. Certainly, if you add politics back into the equation, the federal government still wants a pat on the back for the move they're making to cover these services for Canadians. But it may indeed be at the detriment of the almighty dollar. Could it not be done more efficiently if the provinces simply had their money? On some fronts, I think that it probably makes sense. They did it with $10 a day daycare. They basically came up with bilateral agreements with the provinces to bring forward that affordability program. But on dental care and pharmacare, not so much. And people don't even know if they're eligible for the dental care program. I see one of the local hygienists quoted in the news saying they're still answering questions at the administrative level in the clinic as to whether or not you have applied for and are eligible for and will get some of your services covered. So you have to apply. It's a pretty fundamental process, but it does involve, for most people, to go online if you'd like to have it done efficiently. But there are some of the issues being discussed at the Premier's meetings. And then, let's add this. For some provinces who want the feds to stay out of their lane or stay in their own lane and get off my grass, some of it is also covering up some shortfalls by some of the premiers across the country. If you're so adamant in saying the feds should go away and let the provinces do it themselves, well, if you think that's the case, then why haven't you done it? I think that's a fair question to be asked. Of course, it's easy, and we do it here in this province. They do it right across the country. When you face some political headwaters as a premier of whatever party, the easy way to curry favour, it has been this case in the past, easy way to curry favour is to simply start a racket with Ottawa. Right? It's the easiest thing in the world to do. And some of it is absolutely on point, and some of it is absolute nonsense. But that has been the go-to mechanism for premiers who may indeed be struggling in the polls. All you have to do is say something negative about the Prime Minister. And it's not just about Justin Trudeau. This has been the case forever and a day. So if you want to take on some of those little ins and outs, let's go. And of course, Premier Fury brought the concept of northern cod and the commercial fishery to the table. I guess just to keep it on the national radar, but I'm not so sure many premiers, if any, at the table really care about it or even know anything about it. Anyway, let's keep going. The PCs have opened nominations for the pending by-election in Waterford Valley. Of course, the seat now vacant because of the retirement of Tom Osborne. This is an interesting one. So the PCs have opened the nominations. A gentleman named Kevin Guest has already put his name forward. The Liberals have Jamie Corab tagged to be their candidate. The NDP were not sure. Whether it be an independent, don't know. Is this going to be one of those cases similar to, like on the federal front, when the Liberals lost a stronghold in Toronto St. Paul? Of course, that was absolutely a red flag. They held the seat for 31 years. And, the outgoing member, Caroline Bennett, won it by 24 points. And this time around, they lose. So that is a big, monumental shift. Can the same be said for certain by-elections in this province? It was a significant victory for the Tories when they won in Fogo-Wild and Cape Friels. And, of course, with Fred Hutton took the seat back to the Liberals from the Tories, from David Brazil and Conception Bay East Bell Island. But Waterford Valley feels like a different story to me. I'll just put it out there for your consideration. Is it a Liberal seat? Tom Osborne won it as a Tory and a Liberal. It kind of feels like a Tom Osborne seat. I think this one is completely up for grabs. Just think about another couple of members, regardless if you support them as an individual and or their policies, but just look at, say, Eddie Joyce, Humber Bay of Islands. Eddie could win brandishing any brand, running for any party, like he did as an independent. So it feels like an Eddie Joyce seat. Mount Pearl Southlands, Paul Lane. He's won under different banners as well. So I think the same could be said for Waterford Valley. This one is absolutely up for grabs. It may indeed have some political momentum attached to, given where we are in the polls, given the want for the Liberals to distance themselves from the Prime Minister, all the different complexities and moving parts, but the nominations are open. Marine Atlantic, the problems are not over. The Alasunu back on the run, but the cancellations are continuing. Apparently some generation issue with the Highlanders has caused some more 4 additional cancellations. Now add it all up, but the delay of the Alasunu going on the Argentia run, some 10,000 passengers affected. This has been a common issue. I think Marine Atlantic's done better in the recent past regarding communication, and I would say Daryl Mercer has made himself available every time we reach out to get an update on issues at Marine Atlantic. But people that were on the wharf, on the dock, including staff, were kind of not really knowing what was going on, left in limbo. So a communication breakdown, because if you have a mechanical issue, and they were running the Highlanders pretty hard on that accelerated schedule that they had in place, and these things are going to happen. But people need to be told ASAP exactly what's going on. And in the world of compensation, apparently the disrupted passengers this time around, a $20 food voucher. I heard from one guy, I don't know where he's from or who he is or what he's all about, but he sent us an email overnight quite concerned with the communication related matters and the fact that the compensation came in the form of a $20 food voucher when a cancellation can be a pretty expensive piece of business. How are we doing on the telephone there, David? A couple of quickies before we get to you. So Dan Meads, who I think has done yeoman service inside the world of housing, emergency housing, shelters, and he's the head man at the Transition House Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now that we've seen the release of the emergency shelter standards, questions are being asked about how are things going to be enforced, whether it be about the 2 staffers with their highly trained in mental health and addictions, and the issue regarding violence and health and safety and nutrition and up and down the line. How does it get enforced? What additional resources will be added to whatever department, Newfoundland, Labrador Housing, or whatever department is going to take on the responsibility, public justice, public safety, we don't know. But Mr. Meads makes, I think, the insightful comment on this. And yes, we need to talk about enforcement. But if we did away with the for-profit landlord model here, we wouldn't have to deal with and talk about enforcement at this layer and at this level. So the policy absolutely needs some additional teeth, as was echoed by NDP member Jordan Brown. And it does look we're going to remain on the path of this millions of dollars out the door. At this moment in time, there's some 400 people living in emergency shelters. And I will inevitably get the similar pushback here is, look, enough is enough. People have to do whatever they have to do to be able to fend for themselves and pay their bills and get a job and all the rest. Now, some people have some very seriously complex needs, which makes that easier said than done. And yes, we can talk about the expansion of the Employment Stabilization Program, which I have called a success, much to be and very quickly to be told, how do I dare measure success so early on in the game? But I think they're right in talking about where is the roadmap away from this for-profit issue in the world of shelters. And so that's a big one. But in the world of, too bad about them. They've made their own bed, they have to lie in it, which is a silly choice of words given the fact that's what we're talking about, a place to lay your head. Regardless of how you feel about this issue, if we boil it back down to, even though we're talking about societal responsibility, morality, and government responsibility, if we just had people out there fending for themselves more than we do today, whether it be about income support or what have you, and I think we exaggerate how many people in the province are on income support, it's around 5% of adults. The facts are, inside the world of healthcare, and this is a very recent report coming from the University Hospital in Toronto, they looked at admissions of about 1,000 people, and the outcome was clear. The cost and the length of stay for people who were housed versus homeless was stark. Homeless people, because of their complex medical needs, they were quite likely to stay in hospital twice as long, consequently costing twice as much. So if you think we're spending too much money on the world of emergency shelter and affordable housing, if we weren't, I'd bet my check that it comes in much more expensive when we factor in the cost and provision of healthcare if and when you are a homeless person. Let's talk about it if you're so inclined. All right, let's check in on, before we get to the Twitter, I'm going to get a couple of quickies out of the way. This was a really interesting story, and it was on this date 17 years ago in 2007, right here in the city of St. John's, the shortest live show ever. The White Stripes were in town, right? Jack and Meg White. They were here for a performance that evening, and I remember chasing around the rumors that day. I was subbing in for Deborah Collins on Summer Breeze, which was a summer program on Rogers TV. So me and the cameraman, I think it was Perry Cooper, we're bombing around trying to make sure we were there when they hit the stage, and they ended up showing up on the stage on George Street. And in the note of a shortest live show ever, Jack White played a single C note, and the drum or the crash cymbal hit by drummer Meg, that was it. Jack White on the heels have said, we've now officially played in every province and territory in Canada. They left the stage. One note, bong, gone. Away they go. Also, another quickie in music. 58 years ago today, in 1966, virtuoso guitar and bass players Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce joined drummer Ginger Baker to form the world's first real rock power trio, Cream. We used to come in the dressing room. I'll give credit to this one for Sean Skinny Newhook. This is probably when we were playing Bantam. If we won, we came in, and Skinny had it all queued up on the Ghetto Blaster. Hit play. I'm So Glad by Cream came ringing out. We're on Twitter. We're VOSIM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vosim.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. First, we're going to talk about the condition of a cemetery in Corner Brook. Then someone has a bouquet to pass along. We'll find out about that. And whatever you want to talk about. Right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Rod, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. It's Rod Biver calling, living now in Paradise the last 10 years, but originally from Corner Brook. And what I want to talk about is the condition of the Mount Patricia Cemetery, which serves the greater Corner Brook area. 30 years ago, this October, myself and my then wife, Sandra, had a child, Doreen Elizabeth. And unfortunately, at a very young age, she passed away while we held her in a hospital in Ottawa. She's buried in Mount Patricia Cemetery. And over the last 2 or 3 years, whatever's going on over there, they've decided that, maintenance is not a priority. And I'm over here, and I get home once a year and I go over and I try to do my best with it. In the meantime, I contacted the Cemetery Association back 2.5 months ago and asked them if they could attend to the gravesite. And, a few days later, they got back to me and said, yes, we'll have a look at it. Well, nothing was done. About 2 weeks ago, I hired a private landscaper in Corner Brook, Dave Smith. And Smitty went over and cleaned it up, raised the stone out of the ground, level it up again, and cleaned up the site, level up the ground. It had sunk in a bit. Last evening, I got a phone call from my sister and my mother and some pictures. And what they showed me, to say that I'm upset is an understatement. While they were decided to finally mow the lawns over, they ran over all the babies' graves. You can see the tire tracks going through it. You can see stuff knocked down. This is just one thing. This has been going on for quite some time over there. Then my mother calls me back upset and says that her husband, my father's grave, his headstone has been struck by a piece of equipment and damaged. Then she tells me that my grandparents' grave marker has also been damaged. I mean, who the hell is in charge over here? Over there, what is going on? Is there any sanctity at all? Does anybody have any common sense? In the last 2 or 3 years, I think staff have changed, and I'm not quite sure who's doing it, but there's dozens of instances where pieces that little mementos that people will place on these graves have been run over, and if you want to find them, you can go up behind the cemetery building, and you'll see it all piled up. A friend of mine made a stainless steel cross and put on a grave there. He drove that into the ground about 2.5 feet. That got sheared off, and they found it over behind the cemetery building again. I mean, this is constant, and I don't know who's in charge over there anymore, but something needs to be said about this, and something needs to be done.
Every time I hear a story, whether it be about maintenance by staff around cemeteries and or vandals that take it upon themselves to go in and damage headstones and rip the place up, I can never understand it. I mean, you would think that every single person listening would be level-headed enough to know that when you walk into a cemetery, It's hallowed ground. People's loved ones are buried there and to be remembered there. So to take care of the place, stay on the paths, leave people's grave sites alone, leave the headstones alone. If you do indeed damage one, go to the records, find out exactly who's still living that is responsible for, so that we can make sure that we make amends. We fix gravestones, we fix up sites, we fix the fences we knock down. It's just really heartbreaking and mind-boggling to know that people are just so cold and callous and oblivious when they're operating as staff or individuals in the graveyard.
Yeah, absolutely, Patty. I mean, this is staff mowing the grass. In the Catholic section of the cemetery, the majority of the headstones are plaques to make it easier. So now they just run over them. They ride over them. In Mount Patricia, that was a rule made many, many years ago. So they just run over them. And if there's anything there, they run over that. You can go over there at any time at all and see the grass clippings blown onto it, not cleaned off, like a little toy bear that my mom puts on the little angel bear that my mom puts on during Elizabeth's grave. Shred it in the mower. I mean, come on, boys, for Christ's sake. Right? Like, whoever is irresponsible, I hope somebody's listening, and I hope they're ashamed. Right, that this is what we have to deal with. To find this out last night and to get that picture, and to hear from my mother about this is devastating.
Now, I don't know who the person is or what was in their mind, but it's possible that it was just an accident. I mean, there's things that people do, you try to be careful, and maybe you ran over it and didn't know it until after the fact. But even if that's the case, you still have to make sure that the families involved are made aware, and you can repair it on their own time. So if it was just oblivious, well, that's its own problem. If it was an accident, then that's a different conversation.
Well, in this section where the babies were all buried, all right, it's a long, straight line. And I can assure you it wasn't an accident, because the mower ran over every one of them. So they had to see, they knew what they were doing. And this is a common occurrence in Mount Patricia Cemetery. It's a very common occurrence. And again, I hope that somebody is listening to this. I hope that the cemetery people are listening to this, and they respond. I want an answer to this. This is ridiculous. 2 months pleading with them to get this fixed up, and I had to hire someone to do it. Fine, I had to hire someone to do it, but it's only been done now a week or so, and then it's destroyed. Come on. Anyways, Patty, I again, thank you so much for your kind ear, and keep doing the good job you do. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and what I should say, I appreciate that, but I don't think I've ever set foot in the Mount Moriah Cemetery, so I can't picture the different sections and the headstones and the plaques, what have you.
Mount Patricia, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It was Mount Patricia.
Oh, sorry, Mount Patricia. So
it's directly across from Prince Edward Park, as you go across the Bellin Bridge, heading across the bay, we say in Cornwall.
Fair enough. Rod, I appreciate the time this morning. Thank you. And I hope this gets solved or rectified.
Listen, buddy, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. Have a good day, buddy.
You too. Bye, Rod.
Bye.
Yeah, so, I mean, every now and then it grabs headlines, and it wasn't all that long ago. One of the cemeteries here in town, I'll leave it unnamed, where the vandals went in and they were purposefully knocking over the headstones that they possibly could. Now, some, of course, they put the boots to a few times and couldn't manage to knock them off their stand or tip them out of the ground, but they're in there doing it. Let me add to it. This just popped to my head, and this is a little bit morbid, but we're just talking about graveyards. People will travel for lots of reasons, whether it be culinary scenes, visit UNESCO World Heritage Sites, or Broadway for a show, or whatever the case may be. But there's actually part of the travel industry is to visit famous graveyards. I've read about, I don't know how I fell down that particular rabbit hole some while back, but apparently it's a real thing. So whether you want to visit Jim Morrison's grave in Paris, or some of the more famous mausoleums and graveyards in California and Los Angeles with all these famous celebrities that have been buried there or interned there, apparently that's a thing. You can be a real walk down history's lane, walking through graveyards, maybe where your family is originally from, and maybe some smaller rural parts of the country and the province, and that can be really fascinating, and will spur on certainly lots of stories and connections to be made. But yeah, part of the travel industry is going to visit cemeteries in different parts of the world, which is pretty wild. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, the topic entirely up to you. Pick up the phone, get in the queue during this break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Glenn. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Patty. I'm going to pull over here now, even though you're on Bluetooth on the on the car here, but the phone coverage is terrible, and I don't want to lose you. So just give me 1 second here now.
Okay.
I'm looking for a good spot on the road, so that might take a while, eh? There we go. Hear me now?
I can hear you pretty well. Go ahead, Glenn.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd just like to call in and throw out a bouquet this morning and a big thank you to all the bikers that showed up for my friend Ed George in New Harbour last Thursday. Ed was diagnosed with cancer some time ago. Not a long time, but some time ago. And one of his last requests before he died was some of the bikes in the area would come and come underneath his window at his house there and rev up their engines, and he would enjoy that because he had a connection with the bikers, eh? And so his family put out a request and hoping to get probably 10 or 15 bikes to come to his house in New Harbour. Well, guess what? 110 showed up. And so with 110 bikes trying to get into his house and stuff like that, it was a bit of a hassle. But just imagine, you expect to get probably 10 or 15 bikes, and 110 showed up. And probably 90% of them didn't know Ed at all. But when the call went out there, they just felt they wanted to do that. And there would have been more, but the time in the evening, people couldn't get there. But we all got in there. Everybody shut down their bikes. And then we had a guy there from the Christian Motorcycle Association have a short prayer. And then I said to the bikers, now when you start your bikes, you rev them up as loud as you can. And Ed's head was right beside the window in his room. And so I'm going to tell you, when 110 bikes in a little area that was in there revved up their engines, I'm going to tell you, he was delighted because he was quite conscious and knew what was going on. And the joy that it brought that family and the request it made for Ed was unbelievable. And I just want to say thank you to all the bikers on behalf of Ed's family. And by the way, Ed's funeral is today. And so on behalf of the family today, to those bikers who got there and those who could not get there, thank you very much. And not only those bikers, but all the bikers that go out and do rides on behalf of this, that, and whatever. Like this year again, the Ride for Dads, right? 410 bikers showed up for the Ride for Dads. And give up what's doing home. We ride every day, but when there's a cause, you'll hear tell of a bunch of motorcycle groups getting together and going and raising money for the different individuals. So there's a lot of good in those motorcycle groups.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes when people see patches and colors, they automatically go down the path of Hell's Angels, when in fact there's lots of good groups out there regarding motorcyclists doing good things, enjoying each other's company, get their knees in the breeze, go for a ride. But getting behind causes is certainly a big one. So when did this happen?
Well, last Thursday it happened.
Okay.
They put a request out just a few days before that. So Ed, like I knew Ed all my life, was not real close, but good friends, as such, right? And so when I heard that he had this request, I thought it would be great. So, I just couldn't believe it when, we figured maybe 15, 20 max, eh? But at least 110 bikes showed up. And then we had to get them in underneath Ed's window. And then I went in and I spoke to Ed before we all came over. And I'm going to tell you, that man's dying wish was met more than enough. And that's for sure.
Can you tell me a bit more about Ed?
Well, Ed was a fisherman most of his life, and then in his area, when fishing got ups and downs, then he had a bit of trucks and trailers and that on the go, and he was just a good guy. And the Newfoundland Riders, every time the Newfoundland Riders, that's a Christian group, that's a biker group, and the Newfoundland Riders, over the past, I don't know how many years, every time they do a fundraiser and they drive by New Harbour, Ed heard that wherever they would stop to, they would have sandwiches and that for the riders. So Ed said, we're going to fix that. So Ed decided that him and his family was going to have fish and chips for every one of the guys that was in the Newfoundland Riders that was doing this ride for whatever cause, eh? And so he had a heart of gold, and that's for sure. He probably that was his lifestyle was helping and giving to people, you know. So when I heard he was probably about 2 weeks ago that he was terminally ill with cancer, I was kind of blown away. But you know, to see the response the boys came out was unbelievable, you know. Fantastic.
It sounds great. I'm glad it worked out the way it did, Glenn. Thanks for telling us about it.
And Patty, if I got another second or so, and this Saturday coming now, like the Newfoundland Riders are riding again. I ride with a group called CMA, Christian Motorcycle Association, 150,000 members strong throughout the world, right? And always doing rides for somebody, helping them some way or another, right? And all the groups here in Newfoundland, like the different ones, there's dozens of different groups. And like you said, whenever they get together to do a ride for a cause, if they hear of it as a sick kid or something, money needs to be raised, you know, we're going to do a ride, eh? So whenever you're, as a biker, and you've got to take part in any of these rides, don't think about it as a ride, but think about the good that you're going to do, you know? Because like this Saturday coming up, we're going to be involved with the Newfoundland Riders, CMA, for the first time. But they've been doing this for, I think, the guy Ed told me, probably 20, now not Ed that passed away, but the guy with the Newfoundland Riders, Ed, they've been doing this for 25 years. There's a name behind it. Having this ride this particular time of the year for a different individual that needed it. This year, there's a little girl in New Harbor that's been battling cancer for a good many years, a very young little girl. And this year, the ride is in her honor. And when we finish the ride, we're going to be in Spaniards Bay, and she's going to be there so that they can present to her what they have raised. And so, yeah, my heart goes out today, and a big thank you to all the bikers all over, but certainly here in Newfoundland, that's satisfied to say to your family, listen, there's a ride today for a cause, and I think I'm going to take part in it, you know, and most families, I know mine is, you know, go by all means, you know, and so that's what it's all about. And Patty, before I go, I know your time is almost up, but give us a break sometimes, because I've been riding since 1970. And last year I witnessed a bad accident. Well, I tell you, sometimes drivers and cars and trucks and that are not as courteous as they should be. You need to give the bikes a little bit extra break. You know, you really do. Right?
Fair enough. I appreciate the time, Glenn. Nice talking to you.
And listen, thank you for what you're doing, all your crew there.
Thanks, Glenn. Stay in touch.
Have a great day.
You too, man. Bye-bye. Here you go. That was pretty great. Let's keep rolling. Line number 3. Kevin, you're on the air.
Yes, Paddy, I wonder if I could put a little announcement about a lost article. We're looking for a small carry-on suitcase that fell from our pickup truck early on Friday evening at the intersection of Commonwealth Avenue and Richard Nolan Drive in Mount Pearl. We were told that this suitcase was picked up and put into another truck. Hoping to get this back as it belongs to a visiting family from Ottawa. If anyone has any information, I can leave my number. That's no problem.
Sure, and now David has it if you'd like to keep it off the public airwaves, but...
Okay, yeah, no, I'll put it over the public as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, 709-693-2753. 709-693-2753. I appreciate that very much, Paddy.
Well, Kevin, fingers crossed that you get it back, because I don't know what was in it, but by and large, in carry-ons, unless you've got some jewelry or cash or watches are in it, it's probably just people's personal items, their clothes and a shaving kit or something. So if you picked up the carry-on, you know it's not yours. It's belonged to a family member of Kevin's. 709-693-2753. Let me know how it works out, Kevin.
I will, Paddy, and there were some personal clothing items, but also a pair of contact lenses.
Okay.
Things like that, hey?
Fair enough.
Okay, Paddy, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Kevin. Take care. All right, bye-bye.
Right, bye now.
So someone picked it up, full well it's not yours. And if you picked it up not knowing who owned it, now you know. So if you've heard that conversation in and around your social circles and they picked up a lost carry-on, we know who it belongs to. All right, let's take a break. We made some mention of the National Dental Care Program off the top. Still some confusion as to who's actually eligible. Canadians, there's got to be thousands out there who are actually eligible, whether it be under the age of 18, hold a disability tax credit, and or 65 years plus. And of course, those portals were open to expand to more and more Canadians as time goes on. But Nicole Kiley, she's a dental hygienist and the owner of Dental Hygiene Studio, is in the queue to talk about the dental care program right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 4 and say good morning to Nicole Kiley. She's a dental hygienist and the owner of the Dental Hygiene Studio. Good morning, Nicole. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, from where I sit, some of these big plans, some of the big sweeping plans inside of the restoration of some healthcare offerings for Canadians, pharmacare and dental care, they were kind of rushed. There's lots of confusion about both. And so what are you seeing on the ground? Because people contact me thinking, how come I haven't got my letter in the mail telling me I'm eligible? Well, number one, you have to apply yourself. So what are you hearing from some of your clients or patients?
Yeah, so it's the same kind of sentiments we're hearing, that when the 65-plus tier rolled out, they were sending out letters and cards. So I think there was an expectation that people were waiting for their letter in the mail. And I actually saw 2 people last week in my chair who've been paying out of pocket for their care and didn't even realize they were actually eligible. So unfortunately, once you can't access care until you receive your actual ID number, but there is some confusion around the fact that people need to go ahead and apply for it now that they're not automatically covered.
And it's pretty fundamental. I believe it's Sun Life. Is it Sun Life or Manulife that are administering the program for the government?
It's through Sun Life.
Through Sun Life. And I've tried to help people navigate the application process. It is really quite fundamental. So people shouldn't be worried about getting involved with government, because sometimes that layer of bureaucracy can be daunting, but in this case, it's really not too difficult.
Absolutely. And you know what? One of the biggest obstacles, I think, initially when you go to apply is if you go to the Canada.ca website, you have to click through a few screens. You have to go through benefits. But if you Google CDCP, it's easier to apply because you can get a direct link right to the page where you go through the CRA website.
Yeah, and that's always a good idea. Google up the specifics so you don't have to try to bounce around the main page. Absolutely right. There's also some confusion about what exactly is covered, because we know that from the onset, dentists and hygienists and denturists, they weren't brought into the 11th hour to be consulted. And so as a result, many professionals in the dental care world didn't sign up. And I still think there's a pretty slow trickle of dental care pros signing up to be part of this, which gets further complicated now that Federal Health Minister Mark Holland has said you don't have to sign up. You can direct bill Sun Life. But some of the services that will be covered don't happen yet. So what can you tell us about that?
So I don't have the specifics in the dentistry world. I know that some procedures some of the larger procedures require a pre-authorization, which is pretty commonplace with any insurance company. Right now, for us, people can access dental cleanings, prevention-focused care. So at our clinic, that's what we offer. And the interesting thing with this plan that I still haven't seen it in action, but there's apparently no limit. There's no maximum. So they get enough coverage for, let's say, basically one cleaning a year, and we can apply for additional coverage with some supporting documentation showing that that person needs it. So I haven't seen that. The government has assured us it's an easy process, but because we haven't seen anybody for a second time, we haven't gone through that process yet. But I think what's rolled out so far is definitely the basic care, your dental exams, x-rays, fillings, extractions. I think root canals are available but require pre-authorization. The same thing with like dentures. But it's pretty great in the way that it covers so many different services.
Is there anything in particular that you would offer as a service to your patients that is not covered? Because I think there's still some confusion out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of the some of the confusion in the public is one thing that had happened is that the fee guide, when there's a 100% coverage option, everyone gets really excited when they hear 100% coverage, but it was of a lower fee guide. So a lot of the services, like at our clinic, we've decided to split the difference. We're absorbing some of the write-off, and we're having to pass on a small balance to our patients. But I think that also kind of confused the public when they're like, okay, wait, how much does it actually cost? So it is the responsibility of that person, even if the service is covered, to check in with their dental professional and just ask. It's hard to give an estimate of how much something will cost in dentistry, but like at my clinic, we can give an average. We know that if somebody has 100% coverage, it's still going to cost them between $16 and $25 out of pocket for a basic dental cleaning. But most of the services we offer are actually covered. We're pretty lucky in that we don't have a lot of limitations with the plan.
Which is a very good thing inside the world of being a hygienist. And even the president of the Dental Association, his name escapes me right at this moment, but he was on the program, and basically he said, the worry was for administrative burden, and I'll ask you about what that means in your clinic, but basically the advice is to call the administrative staff at whatever clinic, the hygienist office, denturist, or dental clinic, and they'll help walk you through it so that you don't show up and all of a sudden on your way out ask to pay that outstanding fee balance, whether it be $25 or whatever the case may be. That was a worry, administration. How has that worked for you? Has it been cumbersome?
We love efficiency. That's one thing that we tried to ensure and maintain with our clinic. We have online booking. We try to make it as easy for people as possible. So we actually had a system in place. And meanwhile, we're dealing with much less codes. But administratively, I have to say, processing claims, like we get reimbursed within sometimes 24 hours for our CDCP patients. So other than like setting it up and making sure we understand how to communicate with the patient, what their balance will be, and how to help them make sure that they have coverage, we do double check when somebody books an appointment. We do have to go in and just make sure that we know their percentage that they're covered. We can take care of all that on our end, so we do need to collect some information. But for us, we've had a pretty easy go of it.
And just so people know exactly what we're talking about with, the co-pay issue, because there's a floating target between if you have a net family income of $90,000 or less, you're covered. But if you have a net family income of $70,000 or less, there's no copay. So that difference between $70,000 and $89,999 is why you see the disparity or the fluctuation between what a copay might be if my family earns $75,000 and yours earns $85,000. So that's some of the area that gets sort of confusing for some.
Absolutely. And so if people are talking about how much they paid, I have my chart in front of me here. So people could pay as little as $16.23, or on average, it could cost $160.39 out of pocket because the Canadian Dental Care Plan would only be covering like $92. And one thing to consider with the coverage for, let's say, dental cleanings is a lot of the people we're seeing haven't seen a dental hygienist in a while. So it's not a quick and easy cleaning. Like some of them, it's more involved. It's a full hour of scaling, of tartar removal. It's a lot of like educating the patient. So it is, the appointments can vary, but also the care for a lot of these people, what is being offered isn't adequate. And we will have to go in and apply for more coverage for their second visit, because most of them will need 2 or 3 visits a year for sure.
And there is no cap on that, right?
They say, Patty. I haven't seen it yet, but allegedly there's no cap on anything, which I find interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to putting through some additional coverage and seeing if we can get that approved.
We've heard from some dentists across the country. I know you're a hygienist, but for some dentists, they're saying that, for patients that hadn't seen a dentist in quite a long time and now were covered by this plan, they came in and it wasn't simply just some dental work. It was emergency dental work that had to be executed. You can only imagine people living in, because for anyone who's ever experienced pain with their teeth or their gums, it can be debilitating.
Oh, my God. And it's a process. And here in Newfoundland and Labrador, with the exception of the Children's Dental Program, we do have a pretty great program for children under 13. Nobody has been covered for anything beyond their $300. I think it's $300 a year they get for emergency treatment, which is, it's cheaper to pull out teeth than it is to fix them. So for a lot of people, they have just been slowly pulling out one tooth at a time instead of being able to maintain them. So for that, right now the 65 plus and the 18 and under, we're really excited about the 18 and under. We haven't seen anybody yet in the 18 to under category, but a lot of times after 13, when you grow up in a low-income family, you're only receiving emergency care until sometimes you hit university, if you're lucky enough to get coverage, or until you get a job that has coverage. So if that 13 to 18 for us, we're really looking forward. And one thing I just thought of too, Patty, I was looking around the site, and if you do apply, I think a lot of people are looking forward to maybe applying, but the site says it takes upwards of 3 months once you apply to get that card. So technically, for those people who applied in July, we wouldn't be seeing them until potentially September, October.
Which is why I'm not so sure they set up the portals the way they did. Because if the next expansion is from ages 60 to 64, then maybe, just maybe, even though you're not technically eligible today, allow me to apply when the upper age group is eligible. So that reduces my wait time. I don't know why they didn't stagger that a little bit.
I know. I think the same thing. I kind of... truthfully, I almost wish they had started with the seniors plan and then stuck with that and then rolled it out from there. But I'll take it. We're so excited that, it's a great thing for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians to have access to coverage. One other thing, Patty, that you mentioned about the capacity issue, I think you brought that up earlier. There's a lot of dental offices right now who didn't originally apply because before it was on a case by case, you had to basically go put your name on the Sun Life website. It was announced, anyone could go see that you were accepting it. And a lot of offices weren't in a position to welcome a lot of new patients. And because of that, they didn't apply and they had to turn away their existing patients. So now with the way it's ran is an office can choose to see one of their own patients who's covered under the CDCP instead of having to turn them away.
Helpful. And I think Sun Life, they said they were going to establish a database where you could just simply see if your dentist or hygienist or denturist is actually enrolled in the plan so that you can get the treatment right away. I know that sometime in August, I believe, they'll be able to perform some procedures to be covered even if they're not formally enrolled. So again, when they tried for political expedience here, it kind of made it difficult for patients and professionals alike. Anything else you'd like to add, Nicole, before we say goodbye?
No, I just would like to let the public know that if you are covered and you're having trouble finding an office to take you in to get your treatment, that there are independent dental hygiene clinics all over Newfoundland and Labrador who would be absolutely excited to welcome you. And in a way, we can help lessen the burden on some of the dental clinics because they might not have the capacity to take on, 100 new patients who also need preventive dental care. But if we can take care of the preventive dental care and connect those patients with the dental clinic for exams and treatment as required, that hopefully we can kind of help out with that capacity issue.
Appreciate the time, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's Nicole Kiley, dental hygienist. So that was very helpful to hear directly from the pros. I've had a problem with my teeth all my life, and hopefully it doesn't get any worse. I knocked out one of my front teeth, my permanents, when I was in grade 5. It's been a nightmare ever since. Just to break down a little bit clearer for some of you listening, if you are eligible. Well, we'll call the Canadian Dental Care Plan the CDCP from now on. So it's all about your adjusted family net income. If that's lower than $70,000, 100% of the eligible oral health care services will be covered. And then the copay, $0. If your family income, adjusted net family income, is between $70,000 and $79,999, 60% of eligible oral health care services will be covered by the CDCP. So that means there's going to be some coverage coming out of your pocket. If the net family income is between $80,000 and $89,999, 40% of eligible oral health care services will be covered by the CDCP. And of course, it's not a 100% fee grid like you would see traditionally when you're billing directly to whoever, Blue Cross or whatever insurance provider you have at your job. So there's a little breakdown there. Let's take a break. When we come back, Malachi's in the queue to talk about grocery stores. What about them? We'll find out. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Malachi. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. Thanks. How about you?
Good. First time caller. Been listening to the OCM for 2 or so years now. Was wondering what the grocery stores in Gander does with all their expired food. We got some chickens that hoping to reduce some of our feeding costs, and we got friends that live in Springdale. They're on a program for Dominion in Grand Falls.
Okay.
That every 2 weeks they go in and pick up a pile of expired food. Like there's several farmers on the list, and they're in a rotation for every 2 weeks. In one day, the Dominion in Grand Falls gets rid of 40 banana boxes worth of expired food. So, just wondering, is there anything like that in Gander for farmers?
I don't know. And, unless there's like a major chain with a national policy, then some of the smaller grocers, that would be their own independent decision. So I can't give you a blanket answer, yes, no, or which grocery store may indeed be involved in that type of process. But I guarantee you there's someone listening to the program this morning that absolutely does know. And if they let me know via email or whatever the case may be, is I'll either get back to you directly or I'll talk about it live on the show.
That would be great.
So give me the specific question one more time. What do you need to know?
Is there any grocery stores or big food producers in Central other than the Dominion and Grand Falls that gives food to farmers as opposed to just going in the garbage? Because there's piles of food that goes in the garbage that would be best kind for all animals to eat, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And there's plenty of food. We kind of get fooled by issues regarding best before dates versus expiry dates and all those types of things, which is a larger conversation given the amount of food that's wasted in this country every single day. And the numbers over the course of the year, millions of tons, which is just it's disgraceful, sort of. Malachi, I'll get an answer for you the best I can as quick as I can.
That sounds great. Patty, thank you very much.
I appreciate you tuning in, and thanks for the call.
Bye.
All the best. Bye-bye. So does anybody have an answer to that for Malachi? And, I do think that there's some grocery chains that do maybe a better job than others as it pertains to product that, might not be attractive on their shelves, but is still absolutely fit for consumption that makes its way to the shelves at a food bank. And if you just Google up an organization called Second Harvest, they'll give you a very quick breakdown of the amount of food that's wasted. And we're not just talking about at the retail level or at the restaurant level, but at the individual household level. There's a lot of food that goes out the door or in the trash bin that is probably still fit to eat. The best before date is just based on the best taste and the highest nutritional quality. It does not mean that it goes in the garbage. I used to be terrible at that. I try to do a little bit better, given the price of groceries, period. Leftovers, I'm the leftover king. I try not to throw a bloody thing out because, like most people, it's become an affordability issue. So the the companies themselves are not doing us any favors. Whether it be with the concept of shrinkflation and or people how they abide by the best before date. Now, when it comes to dairy products, I'm pretty picky, but with the rest of it, if it's expired on or best before was the 15th of July, and I haul it out of the cupboard or the fridge today, I'm eating it. That's it. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 3. Eugene, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you. Thank you to you and David and the OCM for letting me get on and voice my concern on another matter today. About the cod quotas that was just announced recently, Patty. We all remember the moratorium. I know as I do, and I'm sure you do. And in fact, I was just stationed back on Fogwall in 91 for 5 years, and in 92 I started to park there, and that's when we got the moratorium. And contrary to what Seamus is saying, Seamus O'Regan, our MP, is saying, he's something to cake and eat it too. I tell you, there was no cake passed around that summer when we got that word. So some 32 years ago, we've been trying to protect that fishery ever since. Patty, from digging into this, I understand why the moratorium came on. It was overfish, the capelin that is, by a foreign country. I won't name the country. I know them, but I won't name them. by a foreign country, and then we also had the seals on the other end. Well, we know capelin is the food for fish, for the cod. Then we had the seals on the other end that was eating the cod, so we didn't have a chance. So our minister at the time, which was John Crosby, of course, had no other choice. The government at the time had no other choice but to bring on a moratorium. So now, some 32 years later, they're going to open it up again, and we've been trying to protect that, like I said, and they're going to open it to the foreigners again that destroyed it in the beginning. Now, Seamus is saying, and this is what he said, and this is what he said, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, what a kick in the teeth for the people of this province. What a kick in the teeth, because I don't know what's going on with that man, unless he's brainwashed by our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. I don't know what's going on. Why would someone that was born and raised in Newfoundland, from what I understand anyway, would say something like that? And Patty, I got a good friend that's a businessman, Indigenous status, applied for a quota and didn't get a looking. So you got someone with Indigenous status, which is very important, I do believe, here in this province, got turned down from a quota when we got a foreign countries that got an opportunity to fish it. Patty, what do you think of that?
Well, I can't understand the rationale, to be honest with you, because when we add such a meagre addition to the TAC, to the total allowable catch of some 5,000 additional tonnes, it does trigger automatic obligations with the tag of commercial versus stewardship. So there's absolutely no need in this world for us to have triggered the inclusion of the NAFO obligations and foreign fishers. Now, if it's about people who are actually from this province working on the offshore, and yes, the draggers and the gear they use is a problem, given the fact that we understand how the draggers operate. They can put all the protections and mitigation policies in place all they like, but it comes with a distinct issue that inshore harvesters are quick to share. But I just cannot understand why anybody thinks it's a good idea, especially when we talk about the foreign fleets. It's one thing for OCI. Look, this is a Newfoundland company employing Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, so I know why they want to be involved, and okay. But the automatic trigger of NAFO obligations, and that's from 5%, and we do know that the allocation for Indigenous groups and Nunatuck of it is going to be fished by the offshore draggers as well. So it's more than the concern for the 5% for NAFO. It also includes that other 10% that will be fished by the offshore. So, yeah, I just think it certainly feels like a mistake at this moment in time.
Well, Paddy, I agree, and the foreigners that ruined this fishery, because I don't think the cod traps would ever ruined it, that ruined this fishery back in '92, got access to it again. I mean, this don't make sense. Thank you, Premier Fury, for fighting for us. And where is our MPs? How come our MPs are not fighting for us? They got to be brainwashed. I tell you, they need to speak up. This should never happen, and we're going to be right back where we started to before. Paddy, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate that our MPs can speak up for us.
Well, we've heard them all. We've heard from Seamus. I heard Ken MacDonald say that he thinks it is a bad idea. I'm pretty sure I don't want to put words in the man's mouth, but we did this week hear Terence Rogers from Bonavista Bjorn say that he thinks it's the right decision based on a balanced model. But I don't know, man. What was the balance they're trying to strike, and how does this do it?
I didn't know that. Did he say that though? Oh my God. It's unbelievable how they get brainwashed when they get in Ottawa, man. I tell you, they forget about Newfoundland. They're just there for the money. They must be. Anyway, thank you, Paddy.
No problem, Eugene. Take care.
Have a good day, brother. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Look, they can have whatever position or perspective that they want. So be it. That's just how things work. But if the comments are things like striking the balance, look, we spoke with Alberto Wareham out at Icewater Seafoods, and he talks about the fishery works best when the blended model is in play, whether we look at other jurisdictions and how they operate. But in this case, with so little being added, and I mean, if you divvy up that 84% for the inshore throughout all the enterprises that are going at the cod, that's not a whole lot of additional poundage or tonnage coming into those boats. And it's the same thing with the offshore. It's a pretty small amount of fish they're going to get to go after. So if the comment is we're striking a balance, then give me a little bit more. Elaborate on that. What was the balance you were trying to strike, and how does this achieve it? That's all. I mean, of course, they're going to be towing the party line. That's part of how things work. It's few and far between where you see someone get elected under the Tory or Liberal or NDP or the Greens or the Black Québécois party, and they stray from party policy. I mean, we know how those things work. And there's, some examples where it's been challenged by certain members of certain parties. George Baker comes to mind. And Ken MacDonald, of course, calling for a leadership review of Justin Trudeau as the Prime Minister. And Scott Sims, when he spoke about the summer jobs grant program and the attestation letter that had to be signed where potential employers had to say that they are committed to all the Liberal government policies, it's not about that. It's about people getting a summer job, not about whether or not they sign their political leanings to the Liberals. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, Lindo's in the queue to talk about the wildfires in Labrador. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Lindo, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I'd like to talk about the wildfires in Labrador. I went to Lev City as a resource officer in 1986. 87, I started to work on getting a base and a tanker to be stationed in Wabush. I succeeded at it. The tanker was there for years, and we used it quite often. And so we get likely strikes to go out and tackle them, hit them. Now, my philosophy in firefighting, you don't wait till it gets big. You hit it when it's small. So what I used to do when we get a lightning strike, I get a fixed wing. I fly out in the storm path that went through. We knew which way it's going through. Give it a couple of days, and I've known smokes to come up 9 days after a lightning strike. So that got into a snag or in the ground, and off they come. So I used to fly out, and I marked down the lightning strikes on a topographic map that was in danger, could endanger the communities, Wabush and Lev City. And then I would set out the tanker and have a mark on, meet with them, the tanker pilot. There's two there, Jimmy Allward and Alan Gravel, and they were super, I must say. They knew what they're doing, they knew the country, they knew the terrain, they knew where to pick up water and the time it take, and it took in certain areas. And then they would go out and have a few bangs at her, drop a few for water on those smokes, and it would knock them down. If there's problems afterwards, then we would send out a ground crew and go and mop it up, mop those up. That was one thing to do. Now, in Labrador, and fighting fires in Labrador and Labrador West, you got to consider the terrain, forest type, elevation, and the drying factor. Because we're 3,000 feet above sea level. There, we're not down on sea level like in Goose Bay, where you got the hardwood canopies, but we are completely the softwood. The black spruce, the limbs grow right down to the ground. Then you got the carbo moss going through. You get a fire, you strike, will go past into the carbo moss, and then it will crown into the black spruce. And then you have fire dropping everywhere, all over the place. They get big enough. They have fires starting heat when it crowns. And again, in that carbo moss, the wind change, it goes so fast, it will burn back over again. So they're not considering the terrain and the forest types. And the ground in Lev City, even though we get a lot of snow, it dries out very fast. I've known we've had fires there, we've shoveled snow on them in the back of Wabush, but the ground dries out so fast. No, so I don't believe in set and monitoring fires. You hit them when they're small, you get them, and it's over with. I always had problems there with my supervisors to sit and monitor, but I didn't pay too much attention to that because my philosophy was it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. I went and did it. I had a tanker there. The boys knew what they were doing. They go out and strike it before it got big. And you let the fire go big, get big, then your budget is going to be blowing all over the place. Right now, they're spending more money on that fire than if they'd a week or so ago, if they went and hit it when they knew it was there. They didn't. They just sit and monitor. You don't sit and monitor on a fire in western Labrador because of your terrain, your forest types, and the drying factors. So on that one. Now, they took the tanker out of Wabush, out of the base in Wabush. Why? I don't know why they would do it. Because all you got to do is our hopper-ups, get in the chopper, fly around Wabush and Lev City, and see all the fires we had there. But we got them. We got the fires because we attacked them. And we never did evacuate. We never had to evacuate, even though the fire was right on the back of the trailer park. At one time, it burned the steps of the ski club up there. Burned the steps, close enough to burn that. But we got it. We attacked them. We fought the fires. We didn't sit down and monitor and let Mother Nature. Mother Nature did have a bit of rain there. They should have been out this morning at daylight. That's another factor I used in fighting the fires. If I had 3 tankers. If I had 3 tankers at that I could use, I would have a meeting with the tanker pilots, go over and sit down with them, have a meeting with them, and then I want 2 out daybreak in the morning, because overnight the fire would die down, the smoke would go down, and then they could go at the head of the fire. And that's what they would do, the head of the fire. I keep one back in case, because they were used up a lot of their time. They would use up a lot of their time in fighting the fire, so I have one back for a standby there during the day. And they would hit that fire daylight in the morning when everything was down. They could see what they were doing and hit the head. It did. You didn't bother too much about in the center, because in the center of the fire, the smoke's there. That's a clean up, mop up later on, but you had to get at the head of the fire and knock her out. Don't let her travel. If the wind direction changed, your head would change on the back end. So you had it all cleaned up around the green, what we call the green. We cleaned that up. And another thing I used to do, I go over when they're mopping up, I take calculator tape with me, and we take the door off the door, we bucket, and we take the door off the helicopter and strap yourself in and fly over. We blow up fly around the hedge and bring up the smokes. And then I would drop calculator tape down where the smoke was due, so the ground crew could pick it up, could find the smoke. That's on the green we call it. We wouldn't bother too much in the center, but it's on the green because the fire could start again on that one.
All makes sense.
So,
very quick question. This is based on ignorance, and maybe this is a dumb question, but is there any sort of difference between an air tanker and a water bomber, or is air tanker basically an American term and Canadian government uses water bomber?
Tanker, 2 differences: a chopper with a bucket and a water bomber. It's air tanker.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I knew what we were talking about.
They're one of the same. Only there's the terminology they're using.
Yeah, because I know air tanker is pretty commonly used by American governments. Canadian governments kind of choose water bomber.
Well, it's the same thing. You got that water in an air tanker that maybe is on the base to go in the base to fill it up, because you haven't got the lakes and ponds that we had to drop down and scoop. Yeah. But it's the same principle. Now, you can use also, another thing you can use is foam in it. And the foam you don't drop near water because of the ingredients in it for fishing it,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's good information. So how long ago since you were not involved in fighting fires?
It's quite a while right now. I've retired, I think, from around, when I was 19... I was 60 or 59 when I retired, and I'm 80 now.
I wonder if the concept.
Quite a while. Yeah. But fighting fires, the terminology in fighting fires hasn't changed. The timber haven't changed. The terrain haven't changed. Wind and weather haven't changed. And one is getting worse now with the climate change, but it haven't changed. But they sit and monitor too much on sitting on a fire. If a fire is within, we figure is going to be in danger sometime, there's going to endanger property or communities, you fight it. You fight it. You don't sit and wait and see what's going to happen to it.
No,
and depend on Mother Nature.
I'm not sure where the concept of monitoring comes from. I wonder, is it to do with infrastructure and capacity and how many water bombers we have and firefighting crews on the ground that we have? I know there's a lot of...
Yeah, that could be a thing, but Walbush, Lab City, was a very important place to have one for base. You got 2 mines there. You've got 2 mines. If you had a obstruction in the power line, because the smoke will hark out the power line. It will hark out the power line. And then down goes the mine. There's revenue loss there with the company, revenue loss for the government. So they're not gaining anything by sitting down and monitoring that fire and see what's going to happen to it. Go and fight the darn thing. Get it over with, and put a tanker back in Walbush Lab City, where it should be too. Because when we were there, we used to cover Churchill Falls too, you know. You can't wait for a couple of hours for a tanker to fly from Goose Bay to Wabash Lev City, and plus the warm-up time, you're looking at, when you get a report, you're looking at maybe 4 or 5 hours before they can get in and do anything. Offload their tanker, their supplies out, and get going. The fires, is within 2 or 3 hours, that could be 2 hectares instead of just starting off with a half hectare. So time is essential. Time is a must when you're fighting fires. Get at her, kill her when it's young, when it's small.
All makes sense to me.
They're not doing that. That's what I'm finding. I listen to the news. I just walks away because it turns my stomach. Listen to it and what they're talking about. You haven't got a clue. Some of them, just all trying to give us political stripes on it. But you got to do it like we always did. Fight the darn fire. And don't sit and monitor. And that's what they're doing. Sit and monitor, and that was a philosophy back then. But I didn't pay attention to it. I went and did it. And then, you're dry. I let them at one time to come in when we had a fire, the Grand Ermine fire. Come in, okay. They said, well, it's okay. It's gone now. But I let them go on. I knew what was going to happen. They went on out to Goose Bay, come back, couple of days, up she comes. So we had to go out again. They never finished the job. See? So that's set and monitoring. Example. There's another example I'll give you. The Ashwaubenon River, there is a cabin lot down there. There's 150 cabins there when I was there, based around there, on each side of the river. And you add again your black spruce, your lichen forest. But the boys knew where to pick up water and quick come back. And the fire started down there. So first thing I done, I called the RNC, go down and close the road, don't let nobody in, because we're coming with the tanker. If they let people got in there, we could not drop. We could not drop for safety reason. You take a load of water coming down and knock down a tree. So we couldn't, so no one was allowed in. The boys went down, Jimmy and Alan, and found her, and it was out before you knew it. We went in with the crews and mopped up. So if we never did that, you'd had a lot of cabins burned, and there's a lot of beautiful cabins. They're like homes all down around the river. So that was the one I did there. So quick action, quick thinking, giver. And you add a crew. You respected your crew, which I did very much. And then when they came in, all our tanker pilots came in here. I go sit down and talk to them, and we come up with a plan, because they knew their work. You got to use those people, because they know what they're doing, and they could tell you some things too about what to do. If you figure it was wrong, okay, well they'll do something else. But they knew their work, so respect them. And a $10 lunch goes a long ways with those people,
Absolutely, Lindo. I really appreciate the time. Thank you for doing this.
So that's my and as for money budget. They're going to spend more money now on that fire than if they did on the earlier stages. If they went and got it out, fought the fires right early in the morning. No good to go out. I just had a call from my co-workers there a while back. He said they're 11 o'clock before they put a tanker out. The wind was up, everything was up. Then, so why wasn't there 1 or 2 tankers out at like early in the morning when everything was down and hit the nose and quieten it down? No, you waited till 11, 12 o'clock before it goes out. So that's not, in my way of thinking, in the years I spent at it, and you don't do that. You get it while you got the chance.
I appreciate the call this morning, Lindo, and the perspective. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Take good care.
Nice talking to you, Paddy.
My pleasure. Okay.
Have a good one.
Bye, Lindo.
Yeah. Bye now.
Here you go,
Bye.
someone who was on the front lines. There you go. Let's keep rolling. Line number 3. Jen, you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy. I just wanted to report that we found a set of car keys last evening down by Kitty Bitty Lake.
Okay.
They were left on a bench, and we waited for more than an hour to see if someone would come and claim them, and then we were ready to leave, and they were still there. So we took them with us, and just so they'd be safe. But if you lost your car keys down by the lake yesterday, you can call. My number is 437 5829.
437-5829.
Yes, we're
Okay.
trying to get them back to their owner.
Like you would. Lost Keys, Jen, 709-437-5829. Thank you, Jen.
Okay, you're welcome.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
And this one's going out to Malachi. Of course, he called about, working with grocery stores to get some food that they're throwing away that could be quite useful in feeding his animals. So I'm going to give you a website, Malachi. It's called Loop Resource. So LOOP Resource, RESOURCE, loopresource.ca. Apparently that's a formal program that you can sign in. And it says it's for charities, for farmers, for grocers. So apparently that's a formal project or process that you can get involved in. So Malachi, hopefully you're still listening. Loopresource.ca can be helpful. I want to say thank you to a couple of listeners who sent along that information. Jerry shares a bit of information. Water bomber scoops water from the lake. Pond fire tanker is filled at the ground. Usually they add red fire retardant and fertilizer for new growth. Fire tanker could be a DC-9 or old jetliners that are refurbished. They drop a huge amount of water. And I think this means California. Cal Fire uses old 747s. Also, I was just in Gander. I don't know if you've ever been to the Aviation Museum out there. I don't know how many people go to it on a day-to-day or an annual basis, but right out front there's actually an old water bomber. It's massive. Then there's one of the original supersonic jets, which was really quite interesting. But inside the museum itself, I really enjoyed it. Talking about the birth of the aviation history in this province and the birth of Gander. So what was first called Hattie's Camp, and then the Newfoundland Airport, and then some fascinating stories about how they shuttled or ferried the first fighting aircraft from Gander across the Atlantic to be involved in the war. The very first landing at the Gander Airport, I think, was the 10th of November 1938 on skis. So if you're in and around Gander, I think it's completely worthwhile to take a tour through. There's some great artifacts, some great storyboards, a lot of great history. Fascinating, to be honest. Let's take a little break here. When we come back, we're speaking with you on the topic. Well, it's entirely up to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Patrick Collins, you're on the air.
Good morning, Pat. How are you today?
Great today. Thanks. How you doing?
Good. I'm calling from the Conception Bay Museum. I'm past here this year, but I'm still involved with the arts part, and we're having our summertime haunted heritage walk on July 25th, beginning at 9:30 on a Thursday night next week, weather permitting. A fallback date will be the next night. But again, no, we're walking through the town. Our undertaker, a long-time undertaker here, who's dead many years, comes back to life, and he taunts the various historical figures and infamous figures that may be around the town, lurking in graveyards and old houses and on grounds and churches and things like that. And within about an hour and 15 minutes, a very short walk, less than 3/4 of a kilometer, they'll encounter these various spirits as they are taunted to come out and challenge Undertaker Art Rogers. So last year we had quite a number from outside our town. A lot of our locals go to it, of course. So we'd love to see whomever's around that evening at 9:30 on July 25th at Harbour Grace.
We've talked about this in the past, so just wet people's whistle with some of the historic figures that may indeed be evoked during the walk.
Right. We have new figures this year with new stories, and we've taken old stories, sometimes putting the twist on them. But this year, we know we had a young man here died in the Second World War. He was the son of a very rich merchant here, the McRae family, well known. And he was an only son. He volunteered, even though he could be forgiven in having any kind of service because of that. But he volunteered, and unfortunately was shot down, on a sortie after in Europe. And his father actually lost his business in Greece afterwards, and became very bitter over the fact that his son died in the war. And we're bringing his father. His father's coming back to lament his son's loss. We also have Mr. Thomas Pike, who was accused of murdering, Elfrida Pike, a young 16-year-old girl from here. And 50 years later, the issue was solved. But we have Thomas appearing this year, coming back. And we've learned, by the way, that he wrote a letter shortly afterwards proclaiming he's innocent. So we're going to see Thomas standing by the very grave site of Elfrida herself. And we got poor old Bishop Carfanini is coming back again, and we all know that he cursed town. So we're looking; he's going to appear, come out of nowhere, and of course the infamous Peter Easton. People know that Easton had press gangs, and he would press into service local people when he ran short of human resources, and we're going to have him appear and grab some people and drag them back to their ships. So those are the kind of people we have on the go now this July 25th. You know, scary, it's fun, but and it's not too much of a challenging walk for people. It's very accessible, actually.
Is that teenage murder, is that the subject of your book, Body on the Beach?
No, that's another book I've written called Murder at Mosquito Cove, and
oh yes,
and it's done very well. That particular book still got legs and selling quite well for me, I must say, and a great deal of interest in that story. There's a hike here and with that, you know. So there's a lot of talk about that book, and anyway, so hopefully now people will come out, and that my stories are of course throughout the actual. Throughout the walk, but I don't zero in on those. People don't know who wrote what, but we have lots of characters, lots of good boards of directors that are coming out and volunteers who are acting and trying on their acting hats. And my God, Pat, one thing about this is that we have a lot of involvement in the town and great support, you know. So good to see. So we're hoping for a nice night, right?
So give the folks the date and the time one more time, Patrick.
Okay, so if you're coming out, stay tuned to our Facebook page, Conception Bay Museum, or Patrick Collins Writer, or any of those, and you will find out the latest in terms of whether it's cancelled. It's going to be on 9:30. You should get there around 9 o'clock on Thursday night, July 25th, and it's $10 per person and $5 if you have an underage child, like say teenager or earlier teenager, as long as that person is accompanied by an adult, and you can actually come on the gate and we'll let you in. By the way, the roads are closed that night, so it's perfectly safe. We have lots of security as well.
It sounds like a great night out. I really appreciate your time, Patrick. Break a leg.
Okay, we'd love to have you come out yourself, Patty. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Patrick. Bye-bye. All right, so I'm going to try to take the break on time. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the FFAW election, and apparently that FFAW petition regarding the Northern Cod decision has gained some pretty significant steam, we're told. Maybe see if we get an update on that sometime into the show. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Peter, you're on the air.
Yes, Paddy, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Paddy, before I go on to the topic there, the FFAW, and I'd just like to express my condolences, use your airwaves to express our condolences to the family of Anthony Barry, a great respected fisherman from St. Bride's. Passed away on Friday. He's resting today at the Coombe Funeral Home in Placentia. There's a burial tomorrow. Anthony was a fisherman, one of the better ones, and he had a lot of respect for the sea, but at the same time, there was a lot of times he challenged it. And you hear him on VHF, and when it was coming up for 55 to 60, he said, "I suppose we'll do nothing tomorrow." And but anyway, I just. Long battle with cancer. Not a long battle, a short battle with cancer, I should say. And I'd like to express my condolences to Vivian, his partner, 40 years, and all these brothers and sisters and all these family and friends. And Paddy, Gerald, I met him in lots of times in St. Lawrence and as well. And he was a fellow that fished 3-0. He fished Southwestern Grand Bank, St. Pierre Bank, down the gullies. Landed a lot of different ports, Nova Scotia. The main thing, I think, Paddy, like his main fishery was ground fish, pollock, hake, skate, and all of that kind of stuff. And his main goal when he left was a load. Very seldom returned without it, and that's all I can say. And all the best to Anthony, and may he have fair winds on his final journey. God bless him. Anyway, Paddy, thanks for that.
No problem, Peter.
And Paddy, back to this fishery now, and the fight that the FFAW was putting up and things like that. I got my own opinions of that, and I just think I hope they win because of the reason it needs to be done, and it needs to be done once for all. You can't put a band-aid this time on something that's taken place about like international boats coming into Canadian waters and the moratorium is over. Let's go back at it again and destroy it all again once for all. So, if it's 115,000 tons or if it's 5,000 tons, it doesn't really matter. Like, if this moratorium is over, this got to be reversed, 180. And it's time to stand up, and our politicians to stand up for the people of Canada, the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I think this morning, if this was Dewan Street, and I really believe if it was her that was the president, there'd be people on the hill in Parliament in Ottawa, because we don't have the politicians up there like we did once upon a time. And, you need to let Canada know just exactly what the Canadian government is doing with this fishery. If this was sealed this morning in some kind of a seal protest, it'd be all over Parliament Hill. But this is fishery. It mostly involves Atlantic Canada and Newfoundland as a whole. But, here it is. We're like throwing rocks at a tank. And I really believe that it needs to be there. You need to be in the national and international news and just show what your own government is doing. And when it comes to politics, like Paddy, I've said before in your show, I am a Liberal, and I've had no reason to change right now as of such. But when it comes to the Liberal part of it in Ottawa, I figured this time around, next time around, the Liberal government would have 2 seats in Newfoundland and Labrador. One of them would be Ken McDonald, but since that he's resigning. And the other one was Seamus O'Regan. But Ken McDonald resigned. Seamus O'Regan...
He said he's not going to run again. Yeah.
No, he's not going to run again. That's what I meant. Right? I'm sorry.
No problem. Just a quick question, though, Peter. Just to pick up on your point, say, keep it in the national news. What do you think that would achieve? Because I think there is a distinct lack of knowledge or understanding about how the fishery operates here on this side of the country versus on the BC coast. You can talk about a short soak for a gill net and the dragger gear and NAFO obligations on some of the national political pundit shows, and people at home would be like, what the hell are they talking about? So what do you think we get with that national coverage? I'm just curious if you can expand on that just a little bit.
Well, all of those quick organizations that are willing to jump on the bandwagon because somebody kills a seal, maybe they'd tune in and get in the media and beat the drum about destroying all this fish all over again. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, no, I get it.
That. And maybe the rest of the politicians of Canada, regardless of what political stripe of Mr. Singh or whoever, maybe they'd get on and see what they would do if they were in power with this fishery. Everybody's coming out like, here in Newfoundland, we got Jimmy Dean. If that man won the lotto, he'd have a complaint about it. Nobody does anything right, and that's so far from the truth. But what I'm saying is, let's hear what Pierre Poilievre got to say about what he would do different if he was in power, if he was the government, if his members, MPs, were representing Newfoundland and Labrador. See, everybody got the answers when they're in the opposition, but everybody got the questions, but nobody got the answers. I don't hear the answers. And like one guy said on your show one time, the next person that I vote for should have a resume, just to see exactly sure who you're voting for. And that's what I'm trying to say, Paddy. I just think we're fighting the fight too far from home. You need to be you need boots on the ground, and you need to run Parliament Hill. And the provincial government here in Newfoundland and Labrador, they're up in arms about what's been done to Newfoundland and Labrador. Well, cut some money, put some chartered flights. And the FFAW, the UNIFOR, the biggest union that we know of, 300,000 members strong, one of the richest, get some chartered flights. And get those fishers and the representatives, the Inshore Council, the executive, paid, non-paid, and those fish harvesters, and get them on the steps of Parliament in Ottawa. That's what I would say this morning. I really believe if Dewan Street, I know I always say dawn, but then again, I waited for the dawn in the morning so often. I guess it's just one that I waited for the dawn. But anyway, but Dewan Street, I believe she would use different tactics. But, they're still using doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's not going to happen, Patty. This got to be reversed once and for all. It can't be reversed for just until the 115,000 ton or whatever the case may be. This got to be reversed once and for all. And maybe fishing technology, maybe can be modified better. I don't know, but I just figure gill nets or hook and line or something like that is way ahead of dragger technology. But maybe if those companies got quotas, maybe they could go back to gill nets. I don't know. But, it's anyway, that's not a beef. That's what I believe. And that's what I do believe that had to be done. To make this quick, because before we know it, boats will be fishing this quarter. Anyway, yeah. Patty, thanks for taking the call. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
I don't know if I do.
I'm glad to listen.
The whole bit about the first 115,000 tonne to be allocated to the inshore, it was an easy pledge and promise to make because whether it started in 1979, it was echoed again in 82 and as recently as 2015. In 2015, I'm going to guess that the Prime Minister, whoever gave him this advice, whispered in his ear and said, there's no chance we get back to 115,000 tonne, period, let alone for it all to be going to the inshore. So it probably felt like a throwaway promise to make. Now it's coming back to bite him. What I think would be helpful is if prior to this decision that there was actually a designated or defined threshold that would trigger things like commercial fishery. So there is no such thing as a number. But let's say, for instance, if it was, I don't know, pick a number, 35,000 tonne. Then we'd know what we're getting ourselves into, as opposed to a decision that kind of came out of nowhere, inshore, offshore. Others were asking for it to be increased to 25,000 tonne. But if we had an actual number where we could look to, and this, if it was the definition is at 30,000, 35, 50 tonne, whatever it is, 50,000 tonne, then we move to commercial, then I think everyone would have a base understanding of where we're going. As opposed to just plucking a number seemingly out of thin air, and all of a sudden we change the issue regarding stewardship to commercial, even though DFO has said there's been no significant or realistic growth in the northern cod stock since 2016. And this bit about hanging our hats on, it's gone from critical to cautious, is really not that meaningful. It really isn't. It didn't put a single more northern cod in that stock, period. So I find this to be all really quite confusing because it kind of came out of nowhere. And I do think some of the reaction is pretty much predictable, not only based on northern cod alone, but the way that the federal government went after the redfish issue. The people here, especially at the union, and the inshore harvesters, they were already frustrated, especially the boys who got the shrimp quotas on the southwest coast. They wanted out. They thought redfish would be the backfill, and apparently it's not going to be. So redfish really set up this reaction.
Yes, and ending the moratorium and everything that you just said at that time, ending the moratorium before getting our feet wet or getting Northeast Coast feet wet was a big mistake. That was mistake number one. But I think that was done intentionally. I think I would really believe it was done intentionally by the federal government. And with that, they're helping their friends in other countries, and they're helping their friends right here, the ones with the deep pockets, right here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And again, by the inshore fishermen, well, you take the scraps, because I'm going to take what I want, and then by the time they get that finished up, well, 3PS will be back on stream again. They'll come back over here and finish that up. And that's been done, and everybody knows it. When 3PS open up, 3L fishers will verify this, because a lot of them are up here. 30 nets, 30,000. That's all. That's what, £1,000 per net. The biggest kind of fish. And now, it's the smallest kind of fish, and you get about £4,000 a cod to harvest. So
right, Peter, I appreciate the time. I got to get going to the news.
And thank you for giving me the time this morning. And again, all the best to Anthony Barry's family. And always be remembered. Thanks, Paddy.
Okay, bye. Peter. You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. Appreciate the patience. Those in the queue. Jenny wants to talk about Morgan McDonald. Absolutely terrific, Morgan McDonald. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but we'll talk about that with Jenny. Gary wants to talk about the old carbon tax, and Kathy has a question about the police. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 3. Jenny, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I'm not going to ask you how you are because I've heard it several times. You're doing grand. Now, I said to you one time, Patty, is there somewhere where I can see what you look like? Because I like putting a face to a name. And you teased me and said, well, I can send you a picture, that was taken about 20 years ago. Well, my dear man, now I know what you look like because I was at Victoria Park and saw you fake.
Okay.
With all them faces that are there.
Oh, yes. That's the first 100, I think it's called, is it?
Yes. Yes, I said I got to phone you and tease you, I finally saw what you look like.
I don't think that was the best picture of me, although I'm not very photogenic to begin with, so there you go.
No, actually it was quite nice, I thought. But I just had, I know you're busy and I won't keep you, but I just had to phone you to tease you, that's all. You need a little once in a while something to make you laugh, in this serious world.
I appreciate it.
You have a great day.
You too, Jenny.
And I love listening to your show. Okay, take care, Patty.
You
bye-bye.
too, Jenny. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye.
That installation in Victoria Park is really quite nice. It's called the 100 Portraits of the Great War. And so what happened, and I was really pleased to be part of it, my grandfather, Steve Neary, was a merchant marine in the First World War. And so what happened was you got invited down to Morgan McDonald's foundry and you actually get your face molded with this pretty interesting materials that's on it. You got this little straw in your mouth and the rest of your nose and everything else is covered in full. It's a little bit claustrophobic, but the end result was it eventually got cast in bronze, and so there's 100 faces on that particular installation representing family members who were involved in the First World War. So it's interesting. And I don't know if you're familiar with Morgan McDonald's work, but it's absolutely beautiful. So whether it be the soldiers and the children in Bannerman Park or the rower down by Kitty Bitty Lake, he's got a Mackenzie King installation. Ron Hines right there on George Street, which is absolutely spectacular. He's got a big commemoration of the Mounties that were killed in New Brunswick. He's got that big wood, of course, Bowring Park with the caribou. Then there's the in Gander with those Newfoundland dogs, which I just saw very recently, and so on and on it goes. Morgan McDonald is absolutely one of our absolute finest artists. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 5. Gary, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you today?
Doing okay. How you doing?
Not too bad. It was a beautiful day out.
It is.
Quick question, a couple of questions if you can answer them for me.
Give it a shot.
That tax, carbon tax.
Yep.
In April, I missed the deadline because I never had my income tax done until the 15th of April, and it came out on the 5th or the 9th or whatever. So I missed that one. But now I received one yesterday. But I figured I'd receive 2, but I only got 1. How come that, I wonder?
Yeah, apparently the double up is going to happen in October for those who miss it. So the issue that Gary's talking about is to get the April 15th carbon tax rebate, you had to have your federal taxes filed or your income tax filed by the 15th of March. If you miss that, then you'll eventually get all 4 of the payments, and I'm told that the double up will be in October.
Oh, so I'll get 2 in October instead of 2 in July?
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah, all right, because I got the 1 for yesterday, but I said, they still owe me 1. So, I mean, Trudeau got a few dollars even now, so I said, what did they take $149 away from me on it? But no. So October is coming.
We're told you're going to get it, yeah.
All right, that's the best card. You have a wonderful weekend, buddy.
You too, Gary. All the best. All right, goodbye.
Hey, bud.
Yeah, and so people did get it yesterday, and I thought it was interesting. You look at some polling, and people keep writing me saying, I've never gotten a carbon tax rebate, when, of course, you did. But, in the past, it was labeled like EFT Canada. And you see that on your bank statement. You don't know what the hell that is, right? But now the banks have been obliged to tag it the way that the government wants to do. And, of course, it went from the Climate Action Incentive Program to the carbon tax rebate. So that's a bit more definitive than how they used to label it. And it apparently should show up in your bank account, maybe even just said federal payment. So now it says carbon tax rebate or CDA carbon rebate. And yes, the $149 is less than we used to get. It used to be $164, but it's been reduced because of the 3-year carve-out of carbon tax on home heating fuels, much to the chagrin of many different provinces that rely on, say, for instance, in Alberta. We'll select Alberta here, and their reliance on natural gas. But, of course, they're still way ahead if you're talking about using natural gas to heat your home versus home heating fuels, because even with the carbon tax rebate, home heating oil can be relatively expensive compared to other sources. So that's the basics there. Family of 4 can get up to $298 quarterly here in this province. And there's going to be lots of, the Premier speaks about carbon tax in this light. He says, the current infrastructure and the realities of life on the ground and alternative sources of heating, because we don't have access to things like natural gas, is that the carbon tax, says the Premier, doesn't work and it isn't fair for this particular province. Add in the clean fuel regulations, where we could pay 3 times as much as the other Atlantic provinces. Obviously a fairness concern there. Quick one for small business owners who I have heard from, looking for some details. So the small business owners, they felt like they were left out. They were promised to see their rebate regarding carbon tax to be paid out, and it never happened. Now, there's still no definitive timelines attached to this, but there's some $2.5 billion to be refunded or rebated to an estimated, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000 eligible small business, but we don't know when that's going to happen. One more. So there were some people in rural Newfoundland and Labrador that yesterday thought they were getting the 20% top-up, but that's not happening yet. It was moving from 10% top-up to 20%, but that's not going to happen until October either. It's going to be retroactive to the 1st of April, but those particular issues, small business, no timeline yet, and for the 20% top-up for rural, that will happen in October. It becomes actually part of the landscape on the 1st of October, but the supplement comes out itself on the 15th of October, so there you go. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 6. Kathy, you're on the air.
Hi, sir. How are you today?
Grand today. How about you?
Oh, well, I'm good, but I'm wondering about the police departments here in Newfoundland. Now, first of all, I am calling on behalf of somebody else, and it's my brother, okay? The gentleman moved next door to him about 2.5 years ago, and he's been taunted and threatened so many times, and the police have been called so many times. The police will not interfere with this conflict. It's hard. It's been very mentally hard. We have senior parents in their 80s. They're trying to deal with this. I'm his oldest sister, only one, and I am trying to help him because he is so far gone with this gentleman in Brown's Arm that he just don't know where to turn. Now, he is, biting. He's not causing any rackets. But he has called the police in Lewisfort so many times. Actually, myself personally, I am so sick of it, but they're not doing one thing. Now, my brother has to move. He's out of his home. He don't sleep at home because this gentleman in Brown's Arm has decided that he's going to burn his house down. All right? Now, there was a big racket up there. Somebody else in Brown's Arm called the police. Finally, the police did come up. They said they took him to the hospital. Now, Christopher, my brother, did call, want to know about where he's to because he needs to know what he's going to do, right? He's thinking about moving and selling his home because of one individual in a town. The police would not tell him if he's out or not. Now, he wants to go down to making a statement, okay, about what's going on. He got lots of videos, and I have them like pictures of this gentleman. It seems the police is not doing anything because I want to go with my brother Christopher to make a statement as a witness, okay? But the police denied that. Now, I always thought you're allowed to take somebody in with you as, a witness comfort, while you're making these statements, because these statements that it is gone beyond anybody's thinking of what you can do and say to an individual, okay? So, my question, am I, as a sister, am I allowed to go with him to making a statement, to be with him?
Are you allowed to accompany him?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, see, this is my problem with the loose sport crowd here. We got them from Twinigate. We got them from Grand Falls. We got them from Gander. And every time that I call, because you know me as well, about what's going on with Christopher, they haven't done one thing, sir, for the 2.5 years. Nothing. So when he come down yesterday, I mean, a 58-year-old man is breaking his heart, sir. It's hard to see when you see anybody cry. But when my brother comes down to me and his heart is broken, he don't know what to best to do. Honestly, he don't know. And it's coming, I'm getting a little bit scared of some of the things he do say. I'm scared with buddy next door because other people have called the police. The police won't allow me to go with him to make a statement. This is a problem that I'm having here in Lewisburg. I know I can go with him, but this young feller, he would not, and he denied flat on the phone that I could not come in.
I don't know why someone would...
Me,
Pardon?
What?
I don't know why that would be the case.
They're telling me it's none of my business. They're telling me it's none of my business and all. It's unbelievable. I'm telling you, sir, Lewisburg is unbelievable. I had to leave my home 2.5 years ago because the police wouldn't take a stalker, and I was homeless. This is what's going on here in Lewisburg. I want it to stop. I can go with Chris. That's great. We can do that. Now, what can we do with the individual who just continuously taunting, and I mean, sir, day and night, cursing and swearing, doing damage to the property, and it hasn't stopped. The police here now is not doing one thing. They won't even let us speak to the commissioner because for 2.5 years or so, 2 years, and maybe it's 3, you can't put up with this. You can't put up with the disrespect, the cursing, and I'd like to ask you another question, sir.
Okay.
Can I? If I stood up in my window naked, is that unlawful? In my own private home?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't think so. I mean, I guess it depends. If you're standing naked in the living room window across the street from the elementary school, you're probably in trouble. But if you're out in Brown Harbour or Lark Harbour doing some yoga in your birthday suit,
yeah.
I don't know.
We know well. Because this gentleman is taunting Chris so much, and this evening he taunted Chris, looked up in his window, and he was floating naked. Now, I phoned the police, but he was targeting my brother because he went to the back door, back window, and Chris went to the front of his lawn, and he sung out to him. He's naked, and you should see the pictures. Now, I did go to the police about it. I went home, believe me, it's not worth it, eh? I'm 58 years old now. It's not worth it. So he was up in the window naked. I went to the police station. I showed him. That's okay for him to do. Now, what about if children walked up the road? What about if someone walked up the road there and seen him naked? Like, I can't get no concept to this law, in these past years, this law system that we have.
Let me ask you a question, Kathy, before I have to get going.
Yes, my darling?
What's the root of this issue? How did this become a standing in the naked window and threatening to burn his house down? What happened?
Well, apparently this gentleman has been in several different places, and he's been kicked out of several different places for the same thing that Chris is going through right now, okay? Apparently his father bought him this house, and that's how come that he's not kicked out right now. Because where he's been kicked out before and he beat his out windows, the police have been there, the police knows who he is and what he is. I mean, he's mentally disturbed. You know, people like that needs help. You just don't shove him in the jail, which they didn't even take him to the hospital, apparently. So his father bought the house, so they really can't kick him out of the house because he owns it, or his father owns it. How it started, boy, you know what? I'm trying to still understand this part. But apparently he's been like wherever he went. Like I've got some things about him, right? Like I'm not getting on here without some knowledge of him. But it's been constantly with him. Whatever the issue is with this boy, right? Man, grown man. You know, I don't know what's something to do with I don't know, his Haynes house burned down and Christopher tried out and doubt it and started up again. Be very, very honest with you. I can't pinpoint because it seems like it started within a week or two that he was there. Like he's outside of his fence and he's swearing and cursing on my brother. And he's making a big laugh at the justice system because he's saying that apparently in his head that he can't get away with nothing. You understand?
I sort of understand. I'll give you the final word because I really do have to go, Kathy.
Yes, my darling. Yes. What can I do?
Well, I mean, I don't know for starters why you're not allowed to accompany your brother to the police station. Like, I don't know what that's about, and I'll try to get an explanation. Okay, then add that
because
to the conversation.
Yeah, but you go ahead, my love. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Like, I really don't know where to point you. But has he said directly, I am going to burn your house down with you in it?
Correctly. And there's neighbors across the road, and they came from out in a different country. They're fear for their life. They're up there, they're frightened right to death. They don't know what to do. They're saying they want to bring children down here to Newfoundland. I'm going, oh my God, well, this ain't very, to me, that's not a very good thing to be sending back to another province of what is happening to them here on our little island, in which we do need so many people as we can to help, right? They're even swearing. Oh my God!
Okay, I think you've painted a pretty clear picture. I don't know exactly what to say, what you should do, and I don't know why law enforcement wouldn't be willing to take a statement on a very real set of terrifying circumstances. I mean, even the bit about look, I'm not going to make any sort of diagnosis here live on the air, but the way the person's behaving, which includes his proclivity for being naked in the window, you got to believe there's more to it than simply a neighborly grudge. I do have to go though, Kathy, and so if you don't have any luck, get back to me and I'll see if I can try to figure something out to try to help you and your brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Kathy.
And
Take
you
care.
have a great day, and God bless you and your family.
You too, Kathy. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, so number one, buddy, settle down. Number two, put on some clothes. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Well, welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Linda, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. I just wanted to make your listeners aware of a fundraiser that's happening. There's a young gentleman who, a very nice young gentleman who I had the pleasure of meeting the last couple of days. I'm calling from Heart's Delight, and a friend of mine and his wife just retired here, and they went to Whitburn a couple of days ago to pick him up, bring him down, give him a few nice home-cooked meals and do his laundry and all those things. So this morning they brought him back up to the highway. He's on his way to Clarenville. And if anybody's interested in who it is, he's got a Facebook page, and his name is Ryan Mitchell. But his Facebook page is GQ, as in Queen, GQ Mitchell. And they can find all the information there. I sent it to you. Hopefully you were going to get a chance to read it, but I was a little late sending it this morning.
You sent me an email about this today?
Pardon me?
You sent me an email about this today?
Oh, this morning earlier, just before the show started, yeah.
Okay, so to my Openline account?
Openline, I put in attention, Patty, yeah.
Oh, because, I get so many, but I just scrolled back and I just found it. Yeah, okay, I've got it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so is he running for the Sick Kids Foundation? Is that it?
Yes, he is.
Or riding, pardon me.
His goal is $50,000, and so far he's got over $12,000. And he's, like I say, he's a wonderful young man who changed his life around. And he, as he explained to us, he just wants to do good. He wants to do something good. So he's got involved with the Sick Children Foundation, and he's got several sponsors behind him. So I think it's a wonderful thing. And I'm not sure, but I haven't seen or heard tell of anything about him. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to help him out as he goes across the island.
Fair enough. And if anybody has any ideas or would like to help, or send me an email, I will send you the link to his fundraiser webpage. So absolutely, we're happy to do that much for you.
Well, thank you so much. I would certainly appreciate that, because I'm trying to do everything I can to help him out. His motive and his it's just a wonderful thing to see a young 20. I think he's 28 years old, maybe, and then he's got his life changed around, and I'm just so proud of him.
Well, I'm sure he appreciates your support, and if anybody wants that fundraising link, you send me an email. I will forward it along to you. And so, are you also looking for someone to put him up in Clarenville? Did I hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because he's very short on funds. He's paying his own way across, and he's trying to do it as cheap as he can. So so far he's done really well. I think he's been in like 60 or 70 places, and so far he's only had 10 or 15, maybe a little over 10 places that he's had to pay. Like, he's being helped along the way, and it's wonderful.
Absolutely, and good on him for taking on the fundraising initiative. No small feat or task to ride your bike across the country. Linda, I appreciate the time. If anyone has any ideas in Clarenville would like to help out, they contact us. We'll set up them with Ryan.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Linda. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. When we come back, Cindy wants to talk about Newfoundland Power. Ken's in the queue to talk about cod. Sir's also called about healthy eating. I could do a little bit better myself. And Raven Knight, I think, is probably one of the 16 crew members of the HMCS St. John's, running the rock and all trying to raise awareness and funds for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Good morning, Tom Davis. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
I want to start with Mount Hope is doing another cleanup on Banner Park this Sunday at 1 o'clock. So people looking to get out and clean up the park. I imagine after the folk festival the weekend, city is probably our guys and girls have probably gone through and cleaned it up pretty good. But hopefully people will come out and spread out throughout the neighborhood if they run out of stuff to clean up in the park.
Well, certainly the portion of the park that was used by the folk fest is spick and span. Now, they wouldn't have probably necessarily cleaned the rest of the park, or maybe they did, but I don't know. I did walk through the part that was part of the festival, and it was completely cleaned up. Looked good. Amazing.
I just want to send out our thoughts to the evacuees up in Lab City. Obviously, it's sobering to think about what it must be like to have 20, 30 minutes to have to leave your house. I know way too many Newfoundlanders have experienced it this year. And hopefully they'll get that fire under control up there.
I mean, it's only 4 kilometres from Lab City, and you're right in saying that, it's hard to imagine being put in that predicament or that position, because we just talk about it like it's it's no big deal. You're given 45 minutes to collect the belongings that you want to take with you, and off you go, hundreds of kilometres away to Goose Bay. It's pretty jarring, I would think.
Well, the other thing to bear in mind is Goose Bay's only got a population of 8,000 people or so, and there's somewhere over 9,000 just descended on. I don't know if they all went to Goose Bay, but if they all did, they just doubled their population. And after Churchill Falls not that long ago, it's Canadians, Newfoundlanders, people in the world. We have an amazing ability to kind of compartmentalize everything. But what people are going through up there is, right in the middle of summer, kids are off school. Usually they have their normal routines. and they're turned upside down. So please goodness, the weather will cooperate, and we'll get things turned around up there.
Fair enough. What else we got this morning, Tom?
Well, I want to kind of finish up on Hurricane Beryl, which you and I spoke about. We kind of ran out of time last week. But it's amazing just kind of reviewing this superstorm. On Monday, the forecasters came out and reevaluated how many hurricanes they expect we're going to have this year. They're already expecting it to be a record year, but they've just said we're probably going to have 6 major hurricanes instead of 5, 12 hurricanes instead of 11, and 25 named storms as opposed to 23. And, of course, they're just kind of spitballing, obviously, because you really can't predict what's going on. But that superstorm, like if you go and just look it up, it's incredible. You know how it went through the Caribbean and did all that damage, and went into Mexico and did all the damage, and then it did a fair bit of damage in Belize as well as Venezuela, and then it re-strengthened and hit Texas, and then it just kept going. It became a tropical depression or whatever. But all this flooding up through the United States, through the Mississippi Valley, tornadoes, and then it gets up around the Great Lakes, more flooding in Ontario as well as Quebec, and also a couple of tornadoes in London, Ontario. Then it makes its way to Nova Scotia, and 4 inches of rain in a couple hours, and unfortunately a life was lost. A young person got sucked into some storm water, and it was amazing. It killed people from down all the way down in the Caribbean, and kill people all the way up to the States, and also someone in Canada. So, it just goes to show that from the evidence is obviously climate change is contributing to it. So from a prevention point of view, which is really important, figuring out ways for us to reduce our carbon footprint more aggressively than we are, but also making sure that our homes, our infrastructure is is prepared for things we can't even imagine. What used to be a 1,000-year storm now might be every 5 or 10 years. We used to build everything for 100-year storms, and now it's so as as a municipal leader, but even as people building their homes, really kind of thinking, what's going to sustain itself, because the estimate Beryl did around maybe $28 to $32 billion in economic damages, because not only the damage that's done by the wind and the flooding, and apparently more people die from the flooding, and the damage for the flooding is severe, but also the fact that you get these extended power outages that then shuts down the economy, and then of course downstream you potentially have oil refineries or factories or things that just stop. Sure.
Before I've got a bunch of callers in the queue. Did you want to pass a comment on healthy eating before we run out of time?
Sure. Thank you. So there's a new study out about the ultra-processed foods, and a lot of times we're, we don't really even realize what that is. We go to the grocery store and we buy our food. But they did a study, and they determined that it's a 30-year study, but that down in the States, and this is an American study, but I think we can probably look at Newfoundlanders' diets, Labradorians' diets, and say it's somewhat similar to Americans. Not as bad, hopefully, but pretty bad. 60% of daily calories come from ultra-processed foods for the Americans. So that's processed meats, sugary breakfast cereals, dairy-based desserts, sugar, and artificially sweetened beverages. And they've determined that eating a diet high in ultra-processed foods will shorten your life 4% on average, higher risk. But also even probably more sobering is the fact that there's an 8% risk of mortality from neurodegenerative diseases, which it's one thing to go quickly with a heart attack. It's another thing to slowly have your nerves and your body turn against itself. So for me, when you're looking at what you're putting in your basket, so become informed. And although a lot of us kind of wrap ourselves around like the cost of stuff, but the processed meats are fairly expensive, and a lot of the empty calories, you're really not even giving yourself any real sustenance. So I just encourage people to work towards trying to build more fruit and vegetables into your diet. Overall, you'll feel better. Hopefully you'll live longer. Hopefully your children and your family will be healthier. And of course, from a monetary point of view, a healthier population is a easier population to keep a little bit healthy with our minimal health resources as they seem to be.
Appreciate the call, Tom. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's run the rock. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Raven Knight. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi there. Welcome to the show.
How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Where are you?
I am in Whitburn. I'm at the Tim Hortons and the Irving in Whitburn.
I ran into some of your fellow runners at the gas station, Mr. T's gas station in Gander on Saturday. So
Yes,
everyone
yes.
seems to be in good spirits.
Oh my God! Of course, it's been a wonderful time. The support has been just amazing. So it's really been a great experience.
So I'm guessing you're one of the runners, one of the 16 members of HMCS St. John's?
I am, yes.
What rank do you hold, and what do you do?
On the ship?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am what they call a Naval Combat Information Operator, an NCI op. So I am like the radar plotter or the alarm system for the ship. I watch what's in the air, what's on the sea, and what's in the subsurface.
Fantastic. And tell us, we've spoken to several of the runners and some people from Make-A-Wish, so we know that, you're going to set up shop, try to raise some money. I'll get an idea of the tally so far. The record last year was $132,000. But do you have any personal stories to share, whether it be meeting a family who are getting one of these wishes or just some interaction with someone here locally? Can you give us a tale from the road?
Absolutely, yes. I met with Carter, who is the Wish Ambassador for Central Newfoundland, and that was really eye-opening. A humbling experience for sure. I think it's very easy for us runners to, complain about sore muscles or stuff like that. But I think the point to take away is that we're able to run. We're able to do this. So I got into this after meeting Alyssa Shaw in Newfoundland when I went up with my commanding officer and a few others. She talked a little bit about the foundation, about Run the Rock specifically, and I knew that it was something that I needed to be a part of, something much bigger than myself that I thought would be a great experience and a great opportunity.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad that you're taking it on. I've got a soft spot, like most people would have, for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Do you have any idea what the fundraising tally is as of now?
I would say we're close. We're very close to last year's, but I think at our last count we're at about 126,000.
That's a great number, and you're in Whitburn, so still when you enter into the most heavily and densely populated part of the province, hopefully that puts you way over the top.
Yes, I'm hoping so. It's also where I'm from, so I'm hoping that my hometown shows out.
You're from St. John's?
I am.
Oh, fantastic. How long have you been in the military?
I've been in the military for about 7 years now. I joined in high school.
Good for you, and almost welcome home.
Yes, almost. We're getting close, and we're all super excited.
So where can people find the runners today, and give us an idea in the next couple of days where they can find you so they can meet up, shake your hand, and make a donation?
Absolutely. So I will start with the closing ceremony. That's going to be at the Geo Center at 2 p.m. on the 17th. And right now, they're getting close to, I'll see now, where they're to. They're on the Conception Bay Highway.
Almost there. Raven, anything else you'd like to add this morning?
I would just like to say, if you see us running, give us a honk. Come talk to us. If you have a story yourself, we love to hear it, and we love to put faces to names, and we hear wonderful things. And that all of Newfoundland has really shown out, and we cannot thank you guys enough for the support, for the words of encouragement, and for everything along the way.
We appreciate what you're doing. So say hello to your former members of the HMCS St. John's and anyone from Make-A-Wish, and safe travels.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Raven. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Here we go. Final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Ken, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
How are you today?
Great today. You?
Well, I'm like a first-time caller, and I'm calling about the fishery and the opening of the fishery to 4 and then dragging and all that. I don't think it's right. Many people in Newfoundland, all people in Newfoundland, agree with that, but everybody is talk. So, I don't know, John Crosby is wrong over his grave, and I don't agree with what's on the go. So, I think on July 31st, there should be a major protest, and I'm going to suggest Paradise, Tim Hortons, big parking lot, Blacktop's Road, I don't care. But the FFAW, whoever, government need to be there. Like, government got no balls, and, like, I don't know, like, something needs to be done.
Okay, just a couple of quick questions. What's the significance of July 31st?
It's just a day. Okay. It's Monday. Close her down. Okay. That's the time. And like I said, every man, woman, child east of Clarendon should be there. And everywhere else in Newfoundland, any federal government office, shut down. And I don't know. It's not good.
What do you think the government should be doing? Because I hear people say, well, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. But specifically, because if you have the Premier saying what he's saying and the different members of the government here talk about this being a poor decision, of course, the Liberal members of Parliament, not the same. But what specifically do you think a government could or should be doing here?
Well, like you said, now the Liberal government, the powers to be, got no balls. The Newfoundland MHA's got no balls. Some of them are speaking up, but like I'd love for them to show up and shake their hand. And I don't know. I'm like I said, I never ever called into Openline, but like I said, there's nobody doing nothing, only bitch and complain. Sorry about that, but that's all they're doing. And something needs to be done. And like I said, send a message to the federal government. Well, next election, there will be a message sent to them because there'll be no more Trudeau, which I think is right. Anyhow.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a little way down the line. I think it's going to be, look, the polls have been consistent. The Conservatives are, on an average, about 20 points ahead of the Liberals, which is a huge difference to overcome if you're someone in the federal Liberal Party. The concept, though, just like everything else, if I'm preparing to participate, say, in a big sporting competition, I want to peak the day of, not 6 months before. So I wonder how it's going to look. Now, people are kind of checked out, I think, over the course of the summer, but it's going to be pretty well. Now, for starters, doing what I do for a living, I'm not looking forward to the election at all because it's going to be messy, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be ugly, and in some form it's probably going to be pretty stupid. But we'll see here.
The world is changing, isn't it?
Things are changing. That's true.
The world is changing, and it's changed for the worse.
Well, the only constant in the world is change. And, you know, the whole concept of things are broken, I don't know. They might be for some people. I think we've just got politics leaning in a little harder than maybe in years past where all of a sudden, like, put it this way, if you don't like the Liberals provincially or federally, it doesn't matter what they do. Everything's wrong. Everything's bad. That's a little bit different than it once was. But anyway, that's people's prerogative. They can say and think whatever they feel like.
Anyhow, Paddy, July 31st, if you can mention that a few times and see what feedback you get, and I'm putting up signs on the 30th. Like, I'm going to be there.
Okay, Ken.
Supposing by myself.
Let her fly.
Oh, I will.
All right.
You have a good day, bud.
You too, Ken. Thanks for the call. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And on that front, tomorrow, July the 17th, Harbour Drive in St. John's from 9 a.m. until it's gone. The FFAW is actually holding a free fish event. So the northern cod's been caught and donated by the Sentinel Fisheries Harvesters. So to show some solidarity and get a free feed of cod tomorrow, it starts at 9 a.m. in the morning and it will last until all the fish is gone. So, of course, I'll be left in the lurch because I'll be busy before that's over. All right, let's go. Last word goes to line number 3. Cindy, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. I just want to call about Newfoundland Power sent out a disconnection notice because there's not enough paid on the bill every month. So we just called in this morning to pay the bill. They gave a cutoff notice for yesterday, which they were closed yesterday, so I couldn't reach nobody, and I only got it yesterday. And we called in to pay it, and because he can't remember which phone number it was under, they wouldn't do nothing for us. Because he can't find his driver's license, his wallet was robbed with his ID.
So, I mean, he must have some idea of the phone number that possibly was used, because I fight the same thing when I call for customer service.
We listed off a bunch of different numbers, and it was none of them, she said. She said she can't get the account open, but she could tell us that that's not the phone number for the account, or that's not the ID for the account.
I mean, must have a copy of the bill.
I did. I gave him the account number, everything. That's not good enough.
Well, I don't know what to say to that, because if people want to pay their bills, and the folks who have the invoices out should be willing to accept the money.
Exactly. They won't accept it because we can't give his driver's license number or phone number.
Yeah, sometimes I think they have a problem with other people paying outstanding bills on behalf of their buddies or their brother or whatever the case may be, because it doesn't indicate an actual ability to pay yourself into the future. But if you've got the invoice and it's in your name, I mean, if he needs a government ID, and it doesn't have to be a driver's license, you can actually go to motor vehicle and get a government issued ID. So then you'll have a picture ID issued by the government, and the name will match up, and the address will match up with the invoice. Then I don't think Newfoundland Power has a choice.
Right, but to get you have to wait for the ID to come in the mail, everything to you. This notice was for yesterday.
Okay.
And they're not willing to take the money. And for Kathy, your friend that was, well, not your friend, the lady who was speaking, it's not only out around the west part of the province that there's problems with the police. I waited over 2 hours for a police to come with a gun call, July 3rd. And nobody could give me an answer why I waited so long.
You saw someone...
The whole neighborhood has been cleared out.
Okay. So you saw someone pull a gun and no police showed for 2 hours?
It was on the window ledge down.
Oh, that's unsettling.
For intimidation.
Yeah, so let me get some clarification from Newfoundland Power about how people can attempt to pay their bills if they're in arrears. I appreciate the time, Cindy. We're just about up to 12 o'clock, but thanks for doing this. Let me see what I can find out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. I wish we had more time, but good show today. Big thanks to everyone who supports the program, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.